welcome to the latest episode of the Heavy Duty Hub Podcast. I'm Jeremy,
And I'm Chris.
and today we've got a special guest with us, and I'll introduce him here in a minute. But we've got a special guest with us today, and we're going to be talking about the industry as a whole. In our industry, it seems like everybody is always looking for what Chris likes to call the purple unicorn, and I'll let him explain what that means in a little bit. But it seems like it's getting harder and harder to find people who, number one, want to be in this industry, and number two, will respond to any kind of ads or recruiting that we're trying to do. So, without further ado, let me introduce you our guest for today, Mr. Stewart Zeid. He's with T3 Recruiters. And Stewart, please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, thank you, Jeremy. I've been recruiting in the industry since 2005 and have seen a lot of changes. I have had the privilege of working with customers, clients, and candidates from coast to coast and border to border. My work has encompassed everything from technicians on the shop floor to sales and management staff, and then at the executive level. Currently, my primary focus is on sales management. We do have a staff at T3 that's dedicated to technician recruiting.
Hey, Mr. Chris, why don't you go into a little more detail about your purple unicorn?
Well, and just a preface for everybody, we have talked about earlier episodes, actually, what do we have to do or what goes in to finding the right person? And the purple unicorn came about just from personal experience. I struggled mightily trying to find this 15 to 20 year experience level of a counter person that knew multiple OEs, multiple business systems that could come in and I could just show them what our day-to-day business is like, and they hit the ground running. And this is what my goal was trying to find. And finally, I had that epiphany after 10 years of trying that there's no such thing as a purple unicorn. And you have to make your own. Whereas if you can find someone that possesses a certain skill set, great customer service, problem solving, free thinking, if you can find someone that ticks all those boxes, I can teach you how to look up parts or sell parts. I can't teach you how to give good customer service. So that's the purple unicorn moniker and where that comes from, because they don't exist, right? So, Stuart, with that kind of being said, how do you assist dealerships in finding the not purple unicorn, but someone that comes darn close to that?
It's funny that you use that term because I tell people I can't go out and look for unicorns. However, I'm willing to go out and look for the four-leaf clover because that exists. I think that the challenge the dealers face right now, and historically have, I mean, we all know that the industry has gone through tremendous consolidation. We work with a number of dealerships now who have internal recruiting departments. They're very good at handling, for the most part, the inbound applicants. Some of them are equipped also to do outbound recruiting. But see, that's the challenge here. How do we attract the people that aren't going to apply? And it's through the networking that I do and other recruiters like myself to find the passive candidate who's someone who's happy but willing to listen. That's what it takes to find the unicorn or the four-leaf clover.
I tell you, you hit it right on the head, Stuart. Our previous episode when we were talking about going to some of these industry events, the networking is so critical in trying to find that person. And having someone like yourself, in our industry, a lot of times a recruiter is looked at, kind of like a bad thing. oh, this guy's calling and poaching my. No, they're not calling and poaching your people. They're not a bad thing. They are a really good thing. Because, like you said, you've got so many contacts. You've been doing this for over 20 years. And I think I've known you all 20 of those years because we've dealt with each other for a long time. But you know, so many of these contacts, you're at so many of these events and industry functions to where you do have that network across the continent, really, of trying to find people to fit. We talked about it before in one of our previous episodes where if you put an ad out and you're looking for a parts manager with X amount of years experience and this degree or that degree, nobody's going to apply. If you're a young kid going to high school, how many young kids have you ever heard say, I want to be a parts guy at a heavy duty dealership? You just don't hear that. So you've got to be creative. You've got to have something to draw in people. And me and Chris have talked about that before, being creative in your advertising. But that networking part is so important and so critical because, again, once you've spent more than a few years in this industry, you'll realize that this industry, although very large because it covers so many different segments of the industry, tractors, trailers, equipment, but in reality, it is a very small community. So having those networks and those connections are extremely important.
I've said that many times that we work in an industry that's very large and simultaneously it's a very small world. We don't have 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon in our world.
Yeah, that is true. That's
Yeah.
in so Stuart, tell us a little bit more about exactly how do you go about finding the people to place in certain jobs or how do you take that person and find the job that he's looking for?
Without giving all your trade secrets away, of course.
Yes, of course.
Great chefs aren't afraid to share their recipes because they know that they could probably do it better than anybody else. I'm very humble about what I do, however. I'm not afraid to share anything of my tactics and strategies. Simply put, um, to fill those jobs, the job description isn't really what I'm going to concentrate on. What I want to concentrate on is what are the salient characteristics and experience that's my client is looking for that will create that success. After that, I'm going to make phone calls. I call it smiling and dialing. And I just want to have a conversation with people. Most of them are going to say, I'm not interested. Some are willing to at least listen. I pay attention to what the person on the other side of the phone says. If all they're after is more money, I'm moving on. I want that person that is usually mostly happy, successful, has been with the company for a while, but something's missing. And I want to hone in on what is missing there. What are they not getting from the job? And then discuss how my client might be able to fill that void.
You said something that's music to my ears. That guy that's shopping around for that quarter raise or that 50-cent raise, you don't want to talk to that guy.
No,
No, because as soon as you place him, he's going to be looking for his next opportunity.
exactly right.
Yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
that is a huge aspect.
Yeah, the old adage of, if you think the grass is greener, water your lawn more.
Well, I have a phrase that I use when I talk with people when we're discussing compensation. I like to say, never enough for the needy and never too much for the greedy.
I like
So
that one. That was a
that
good
is a good
saying.
one, actually. Stuart, you have all these one-line singers, which I love. And so let me change gears here a little bit. And what do you find in the current state of our industry? What are the biggest roadblocks and hurdles that you feel you're finding coming across clients that are reaching out with positions to fill, and then actually from a talent level going out and trying to fill it with the available talent?
Excellent question. From my experience, uh, one of the challenges is speed. My client will tell me this is a very critical position. We need to get this filled right away. But there are occasions where their actions don't match that. And so the challenge is, can my client demonstrate that they are responsive? Can my client show the candidate that they have the ability to make decisions? The things that some dealer groups don't get is they are selling themselves as much as the candidate is selling to them. And so the candidate is going to make a judgment on what is this culture like based on how they're getting moved through the hiring process.
Okay.
And I know Stuart, again, we've known each other for a long time, and we kind of have a little bit of a joke running between us where every once in a while, you'll reach out to me and say, I know you're not interested, but do you know somebody who is? And that's part of the networking. That's how you build the networking and build that trust in people in general, but across the whole network. So it's taken you a long time to build that up. What do you think are some of your keys to success in being able to do that?
Part of it is going back to the first piece of advice that the person who brought me into this business gave me, and that is just talk to people.
Yeah.
Just talk to them. Um, I have realized that perhaps a reverse strategy will work. I discovered this when I started attending the Mid America Trucking Show in Louisville years ago. And I would go up to people and introduce myself, ask them to exchange business cards, and I would beat them to the punch of them telling me, I can't talk to you or I'm not interested. And my approach would be, I know you're here to show for your clients and not to talk to someone like me. So all I want to do is exchange cards and perhaps we could circle around after the show. It took the pressure off of them. Today, how I do that in my phone work is, like you said, I might make a call and say, I know that you probably won't be interested, but it'll give them a chance to say, no, you're wrong. I'd like to hear about it.
Yeah.
And in the situations where they truly aren't, I'm going to ask them for referrals. And again, I'm going to take the pressure off of them by saying, I don't expect you to know anybody that's in the target zone that I'm recruiting for. I don't expect you to know anybody that wants to go to that target zone. And let's say that everybody that you know that can do this job is going to say, I'm not interested. As crazy as this sounds, direct me to those people because enough of those people approached, I'm going to find one person that's going to surprise us and say, let's talk.
And I know the one thing that people really don't think about is, you know, once you start spending any amount of time in any career, life happens. You get married, you have children, you have grandchildren, circumstances come up. I've made a couple massive moves in my life going from state to state. I left Maryland, went to Florida, left Florida, went back to Maryland, left Maryland, I'm now in South Carolina. So things happen and circumstances change. So being able to stay in touch with you for the 20 years we've known each other, it again, we're talking about those relationships and connecting with people. You never know. You're right. You may not be interested at all today, but 2 years from now, your kids are grown and gone. They now have gone out of state to different colleges or moved away. Now it's just you and the wife, or maybe you're single now. Now you're thinking about a move, or maybe your parents are getting elderly and they need health care, so you've got to move to take care of your parents. Things happen, life changes. So having those connections and having that relationship, and again, I go back to a lot of times that recruiter term is such a negative thing in our industry, but it's really not. It's a very positive thing because you may need that connection one day. You may know somebody else that needs that connection one day. So just by the approach you have, which is so laid back and easygoing, it's not that in your face, pressure. It's let's start a conversation. And I think it served you well over the years. And I know that again, in our industry, you never know where you're going to be next year. You really
That's
don't.
right.
Yeah. It's twofold, right? So I'm going to ask you a question here. So if I am a prospective candidate that's looking to move to another dealership group or even industry for that matter, what are some things that I can do to make sure that I would be considered as a top tier candidate? And what are some red flags that maybe things I wouldn't want to do to avoid? If I know that I'm working on myself, trying to build up my career, just my knowledge, all the things, what are things that you would look for that would be those benefits and detractors?
I think that the red flags would be, um, are you only chasing money? I will never fault anybody for having career aspirations. And for those people that feel that they've hit a ceiling where they're at and would like to see if there's avenues for them to grow their career, those are important considerations. Um, so, what I want to find out is what's driving that change. There's times where I'll tell someone, stay put, but I'm flattered for anybody to call me and ask for assistance. And so, what we'll do is we will talk about where do they want to go, what dealer groups would like to approach. I understand the need for discretion. We need to protect who they are. If their current employer finds out, it could be quite bad. So what I'll do is I'll create a marketing plan. I'll paint a picture for them of them with a brush broad enough so that you couldn't tell who they are, but colorful enough to appreciate what they bring to the table.
Perfect. Yeah, I'll never forget. Sorry, Jeremy.
No,
I'll
no, go
never
ahead.
forget that I had a boss one time and we were talking and I said, hey, I had an opportunity. Someone had reached out. It was not you, by the way. I wish it was, but it was not. But just I had an opportunity, and they called and this person said, hey, you should at least hear them out and see what they have to say. And I did. But I was grateful for that advice, not that, no, you shouldn't do that, which I think sometimes companies or supervisors are put in those positions that it's the fear if I lose that person, now I'm screwed or I'm in a pigeonholed situation. But by letting me go out and do that, you know what happened? And the result was I listened, but realized that to your point, I didn't have to go anywhere. And I ended up
Right.
staying. Whereas if I wouldn't have had that advice, I think it would have planted that seed in my head that maybe I need to really start looking to get out of here. So it's funny to Jeremy's point earlier, how roads take you many different places, but there's always an intersection.
Thankfully, there is. And fortunately for you, you work for not just a good boss. I could tell that man was a true leader because there goes the rub in our industry. You gentlemen probably already know that people don't leave their jobs, they leave their boss.
Yep. Agreed.
100%.
It's crazy. But this is a great topic. I love I mean, there's so many directions this can go in. And Stuart, your industry experience is fantastic and just what you've
Thank
done
you.
over the years. And what we will do also is make sure that your contact information is posted. So if anybody does want to get in touch with you, they have a direct line that it's very easy to find. So it's hard to believe, Jeremy, but we're up against it, if you can believe that already.
Yeah, I know we love to talk, don't
This
we?
one went fast today.
Time flies when you're having a good time.
Yeah. And with that being said, Stuart, we'd like to extend the invitation to please come back and join us again to continue the conversation. But like Chris said, on the video on the podcast itself, we'll put a plug in there for T3 and for you and your number. And even if you don't have a need right now, again, making these connections is very important in our industry. It really is. And it's really helpful as you go throughout your career. The longer you're in this career, the more you're going to see that it's pretty much there's a lot of people you continue to run into throughout the years. So connections are everything in this business.
It'd be a pleasure to return. You let me know what's good for you.
You got it. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. We definitely appreciate it. And thank you, Stuart, for giving us some of your time. We know your time's valuable, but we appreciate you coming on. And as usual, Chris is going to post all the neat stuff that he does when he edits. And we ask that you please send us any questions, comments, any suggestions, anything you'd like to see on an upcoming podcast, let us know. And if you'd like to be a guest, let us know. We'll try and get you on.
And like and subscribe. That's important. That's help our channel grow. Please forward this to anybody you can. We love what we do. We try to bring you topics that are meaningful and have impacts on what you do every day. So any input, as Jeremy said, you can give us is great. We've gotten some really good ones so far, but we also are not going to stop. 2026 is going to be a great year for us on this podcast. And we love having you all for the ride. Along for the ride. Sorry, let me restate what I just said there, because that didn't make sense.
All right, everyone. We will see you on the next episode.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Stewart.
Thank you.
Yep. Bye-bye.